What is up, guys? It's Snow from Mercs.com. I'm coming to you guys to talk to you a bit about rares and do they rise over time. It's kind of a hot topic right now with rares being extremely volatile, but people have always liked to talk about rares and how they rise over time. I'm actually here to tell you that they actually don't rise over time and they've been falling in value for quite some time now. Blasphemy. Well, guys, hear me out. The main issue is actually RuneScape experiences just an insane amount of inflation, and there's not an increase in players or anything like that. So inflation is actually a huge, huge problem. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the question of do rares actually rise over time? In actual value, they do not. In RuneScape gold pieces, okay, yes, they do. But continuing on here, let's consider the true value. Back in 07, basically RuneScape Prime, the RuneScape exchange rate for gold was about $5 to $7 per mil in US dollars. So this meant for a blue party hat, the real value of a blue party hat was about $2,400 in US dollars. Now consider in 2013, a blue party hat's worth about 4.35 mil or bill, and the exchange rate is about 0.25 per mil in US dollars. So this puts the real value to players at actually 1,087 USD, quite a bit less than back in 2007. So what's this actually tell us? Well, like I was saying earlier, common misconception for rares is that they rise over time because, and then the reasoning is because their supply is slowly decreasing, therefore their value rises. In reality, this is a supply and demand argument that requires demand to also either stay the same or increase for that argument to be valid. And here demand is actually not increasing and is actually decreasing, which I'll talk about in just a second. The real reason for the rise in RSGP value is that RuneScape is actually plagued by very, very bad inflation. Every day more and more money comes in and just simply doesn't leave the game. And so with every other item supply slowly increasing, its value is obviously decreasing, and then my argument that demand is also decreasing, this money just ends up trickling all the way to the top, and since it continues to compound, every other item's value is going to drop because all of those items continue to compound and they never go away. So the money just goes up to the top. So at the end of the inflation process, inflation isn't just always a bad thing. I mean, everybody has inflation. Every country experiences inflation. It's actually kind of a requirement for a good economy. But if inflation is too much, the real and true value of items decreases, which we actually see here. So what does this tell us? The demand for rares is not increasing, is actually decreasing. There's less players that just want them. Think back into 2007 times. I mean, there was just a lot more players who actually loved the game and really wanted to get a party hat. If you went to the party hat trading area, I mean, there would be tons of players. Even when we still had the GE and all the rares were able to be transferred within the GE, there were still players that wanted to trade these rares and they would stand there. So I think that was a good measure. But also there was just more players. I mean, just walk around RuneScape nowadays, there's just nobody around. And if there are somebody around, it's like an 80% chance they're a bot. So it's just clear that demand for rares must be falling, to me anyways. And we also know that obviously supply certainly isn't increasing for rares, but we see the actual value is also decreasing, so there's really only one reason for that. So then obviously that asks the question, was there ever a time when RuneScape had a safe inflation level and rares were actually increasing in real value? Definitely. Back in like 2003 times, I had a yellow party hat, and it was worth about 2.5 mil at that time, and which had a real value of about $50 US dollars. and the exchange rate was about $20 per mil. So the yellow party hat was only worth 50. Whereas obviously even today we can see the real value has increased since then. But the peak was around 2007 or so when RuneScape was like in its prime, and I don't mean just content prime, but also just it just had the most players and just things were going very well for RuneScape back in 2007. The peak real price for a yellow party hat in around 2007 was about $900, um, which is coming close to the real value of a blue party hat today. Um, anyway, and then so it was about 900 USD compared to today's value of about 365 US dollars. So again, you can just see that the value has actually decreased over time. So anyways, I hope some of you maybe learned something and I could help you guys understand why rares are actually rising in price, because I see the argument a lot. I used to make it myself that the reason rares rise over time is because their supply it stays the same or slowly decreases over time as players quit or whatever. Um, but it's actually that's really not the case of why rares are rising over time. And also rares just simply do not rise over time. They're actually falling over time in real value. This is kind of something fun you can do with 2007 RuneScape versus EOC. This is why I stopped merchanting in 2007, because I could put my money into various items in 2007 RuneScape, and I would profit a pretty good amount, but the actual exchange rate of '07 to EOC was dropping so fast that you couldn't keep up with it, even with a really good investment. So that's a good example as well.